Hello everyone. So we are now broadcasting actually this live session from the NPTEL office at IIT Madras. And hello everyone. So we are now broadcasting. So I have with me Mirko Varano. He is the Senior International Advisor and Project Manager at KTH, Royal Institute of Technology, Sweden. I also have Mette. She is Mette Svensson, International Advisor for India Cooperations and Project Manager also at KTH, Sweden. And what we would like to showcase here is the collaborations that have been happening between EU and India in the field of education. So we will actually have briefly 3 presentations, each maybe about 15 minutes or so. And a lot of discussion. So feel free to keep asking your questions in the chat session. We will keep answering them in between the presentations. And Mirko will speak about the overall Erasmus Plus project, which is like the sort of the umbrella under which all these interactions happen in the field of education. International efforts in the field of education from the European Union. And Mette will speak about this specific project on MIELES, which focuses on e-learning in India and how we go about doing capacity building in this context. We'll finish with a short presentation that I will have on 3 of the courses that ran very recently on the NPTEL platform, which were 2 of which were from KTH Sweden and 1 was from TU Berlin. Our expectation is that we have many more such courses coming up in the future. And that this is just a start. The idea of this dissemination event is to, of course, share with you all the things that have been done in the course of this project, and also the possibilities that are available. For you also to understand the way in which you can go about looking for funding with respect to European Union in the area of education. Maybe the amount of details presented today may be more than what you can completely grasp. But more importantly, this is to get the dialogue going. You see the 2 people who are the right people to approach if you want more details, once you want to get down to something specific. So once we are done with this session, I will share on the WhatsApp groups their contact information. And you should feel free to approach them with any specific queries you have about potential projects that you would like to pick up in the future. So that's the brief introduction I wanted to give. I will now hand over to Mirko, and he will speak about the Erasmus Plus projects, and then from there we'll take it on.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. I will give you a short presentation about the European Union programs for higher education, some background, what is existing now, and what is the foreseeable future in this field. I start with some information how the higher education field is treated in the European Union context. As you might know, all the policies are shared between member states and the European Union. Competencies are different according to the different type of area. And in the case of higher education, the competence is exclusive for the member states, which means that it's fully in the hands of the member states, and the European Union just fills in and uses its soft power to try to influence the decisions of the member states in this field. So until 1992, there was nothing in the treaties and in the European Union activities about higher education. This was a progressive process, and we see that now actually the European Union influences quite a lot the behavior of the member states in the field of higher education. There are specific articles in the treaties of the European Union about this, and the programs funding activities in the field of higher education have been funded with more and more, with higher and higher budgets, and they are covering more and more areas. What the European Union does as exclusive competence is to promote the European dimension in education through teaching, languages, mobility actions, cooperation between establishments, and so on, but they cannot take the political decision. Every 7 years, a new budget is approved and a specific amount is allocated to higher education and education in general. States and different actors within the states compete for this funding to carry out the priorities of the European Union in this field. And everything that is funded under this chapter is linked very tightly to the principle of free movements of individuals to start with, but also to specific priorities that the European Union sets in different areas. As you can see here, it's a timeline that we don't need to go through, but in 1980, the European Union for the first time started dealing with higher education by creating a platform for sharing information and creating transparency among the different systems. Almost 10 years later, they started with the first program, which was about intra-European mobility. Then in 1992, they introduced the first program that was allowing non-European countries and actors to participate and benefit of the funding. In 1998, there was a more comprehensive program approved, Socrates, which was involving other levels of education. In 2004, they launched Erasmus Mundus, which is now a very well-known brand worldwide for creating joint programs to attract international talents from outside the European Union. And in 2006, finally, the specific executive agency was established by the European Union to deal only with this type of programs. And so on until 2014, when Erasmus Plus was launched. And Erasmus Plus is a program that brings together all the previous initiatives in a more integrated, under a more integrated umbrella. Here you see a list of priorities and policies of the European Union that we don't need to look at, but everybody should be aware of these documents and policies if they want to apply for funding. So we will talk later about priorities and so on, but you should have this in mind. This is underlying all the calls for funding. So Erasmus Plus, as I said, it's the program that was mapped on the budget period 2014-2020. The budget was doubled if compared to the previous period, and this was a very good sign because this program has been launched during the crisis, the economic crisis, when the European Commission was cutting all the different chapters, but they doubled the funding for education. So it means that education was very high in their agenda. There were growing requirements for high-skilled jobs to solve the unemployment issue. The global competition for talent was also growing because some actors like China and India became from exporter of students to importer of higher education customers, for example. And there was need for closer link with the world of work and closer link between the funding and the priorities of the European Union. So a new approach was necessary. And that's why they launched this new program. As I said, within this program, there was a closer link between program and policy objectives. There were more synergies and interaction between formal, informal, and non-formal learning, more cross-sectoral partnerships with the field of work. The program was more streamlined, easier to understand, and simplified. A stronger focus was put on the European Union added value, which means that the European Union as such was one of the priorities of the European Union. This Erasmus Plus, which will go to an end next year. So we are looking now to the last call within this 7-year program to be launched in October this year, was structured in these 3 main key actions. The first one was focusing mainly on mobility, all the mobility actions. The second one was focusing more on collaboration actions. And the third one was the one more oriented towards policy initiatives. So what we are talking about today is a sub-action under this key action 2 called capacity building, which allows the participation of non-European universities. So here you see in between 2014-20 the redistribution of the budget per action. So the mobility action still has the highest share, with 63%, 1/3 more or less goes to the cooperation actions, and then there's minor allocations for the other fields. And here you see this how it's redistributed by level of education. So as you can see here, most of the share, almost half of it, goes to higher education, which means that we had at our disposal quite a large amount of money for this period, and part of it was used by KTH to develop new or enforce existing collaborations with non-European countries. Today we talk about this specific project with the Indian partners under the Erasmus Plus capacity building in the field of higher education. So capacity building is a specific action under Erasmus Plus, aiming at transferring knowledge and creating capacity building actions in specific areas. This transfer of knowledge and capacity should be from the European partners to the non-European partners, which can be a bit complicated sometimes when you're dealing with very highly ranked partners. So this was one of the difficulties. The actions are expected to be tightly linked to national and regional priorities that the European Union sets every year for specific areas, and this collaboration is between 2 or 3 years, so you decide when you apply. Every year there's a call in fall, in October, and there's a deadline in February. This is a consortium-based cooperation, so the minimum requirement is to have 2 European partners from 2 different European countries, plus a minimum of 3 non-European partners from a third country or more. You can also have regional projects. Today we talk about the national one, which involves only Indian partners. And the funding is up to €1 million per project. What you have to keep in mind when you apply for this is that the applications will be evaluated on the basis of 3 award criteria. The relevance of the project, which is how the project idea is linked to the priorities set by the European Union and how these are matching your own needs, yours and the ones of the other partners. The quality of the project design, which is the methodology and the contents of the actions you want to run. The quality of the project team, which is the excellence of the partners in the project, and the impact and dissemination, how this project will help to solve the general objectives of your country and of the European Union. So this has to be kept in mind every time you apply. So what is next? As I said, we are looking now towards the last call for this 2014-2020 program. Now we will start in 2 years the 2021-2027 generation of programs. Everything will be more or less confirmed in terms of structure, but not really 100%. Usually the European Union at the end of a term carries out a consultation with the stakeholders to see how the program has helped them, has supported them in solving specific problems. And this was the result of the evaluation. So there's more need to reach out to disadvantaged target groups. We need to facilitate the participation of new organizations. They notice that it's always the same actors that apply and get the funding. So now they will prioritize newcomers at all levels. The funding is still insufficient according to the stakeholders. There's a need for further simplification. So if they will listen to the stakeholders, it will be even easier to apply for this funding. And there's this, this is something that is only intra-European, so we don't need to mention. The objectives for the future program, according to all the stakeholders, should be, of course, to have social inclusion as one of the main priorities. In Europe, we are facing a mass income of refugees and people from non-European countries that need to be integrated. Modernization of education and training, creating European identity. There's also fear, there's a growing populism and nationalism, so they think that it's good to bring the European values in the picture again. Short-term mobility, which is currently not funded under any action, so it's very hard to get approved. Mutual recognition, virtual tools, and so on. So there is a number of items that should and might be introduced in the new generation of Erasmus+. This was a statement of the Commissioner for Education that reflects more or less this. So it will be more, Erasmus+ will be more inclusive, more accessible, and more international. And more international is what is relevant for the Indian counterparts, because it means they will have more opportunities to participate in the funded action. This picture shows that Again, with respect to the previous generation, the budget will be more than double. The number of people that will benefit of this action will move from 4 million to 12 million. So mobility will be again in the spotlight. As I said, the initial proposal was to triple the budget. It will not happen probably, it will be doubled, which is good enough. And as I said, inclusion, fewer opportunities, increase the number of participants, and disadvantaged people should be more involved in these actions. They are still pretty much excluded by all the opportunities. And the European Commission is expecting the national states to draft a European inclusion framework, national and at European level. So this will be a bottom-up action. And they expect also to have national special support, including language training, administrative support, and e-learning opportunities, which should be introduced at national level to complement the initiatives at European Union level. The budget will be reallocated to different parts of the program to reflect these priorities. So money will go to where people need more support. Vocational education will be more visible. It will be possible to apply with the same project idea to different programs, to have a set of projects that talk to each other and complement each other, which was currently not really allowed and in many cases even forbidden. So they also want to see a program that is not only used to fund activities, but also used to strengthen the European identity, as I said, in these difficult times, especially at political level for the European Union, where many countries and many political parties are questioning its relevance. The next step is that there will be a final text that will be approved by the Council and the Parliament, and in early 2020 we will know what the final structure and content will be. So in the new program there will be the same 3 key actions, so I don't need to repeat. We will work with Indian partners within the key action 2. Again, the first one will be just for mobility. The second one will focus on 3 different pillars: cooperation and exchanges of practices, partnership for excellence, this will be mainly intra-European, partnership for innovation to strengthen Europe's innovation capacity, and then virtual cooperation, online platforms that will also involve non-European partners this time. So the difference is that while in the past this capacity building action within the previous Erasmus Plus was mainly addressed to transfer knowledge and capacity from European partners to non-European partners, now the European Commission acknowledged the fact that there's also need for peer-to-peer collaboration between European partners and non-European partners with the same level of excellence. So this is an important step. And here, this picture shows it in a more graphic way. The 3 main pillars with partnership for cooperation, cooperation projects, partnership for innovation. This will include forward-looking projects and knowledge alliances. And then there will be partnership for excellence, which would be European universities and Erasmus Mundus. The contents will be shared soon. K Action 3 is very intra-European, so it's not really relevant, but if you're interested, you can look it up. And to conclude, there's only 2 slides about the latest initiative of the European Commission, which is called European Universities Initiative. They launched a few months ago the first pilot. The selections came out last week. KTH is involved in one of the selected consortia, and this is a new initiative of the European Union that aims at creating more critical mass among a limited number of European universities with the same or similar mission, complementary vision, and so on, to create poles of excellence that might be more visible and more attractive outside of Europe, and also to create more impact within Europe by forcing or inviting a limited number of universities to work tightly among themselves and create more relevant outputs. So I don't need to go through all of this, but this was the process, how we came here, and the European Commission sees that the European universities should act as role models of good practice for increasing the quality, international competitiveness, and attractiveness of European higher education landscape, and should become key elements of the European education area. So now we are in a piloting phase, but by 2025, the European Union will consolidate a limited number of these European universities, poles of excellence in higher education, and they will probably be the main actors for collaboration with the non-European universities of the same level. So I think I can stop here. I'm out of time. We can take questions whenever, and the presentation will be shared, so you will be able to go through all the details.
Okay, so would you like to take some? We do have a few different questions. We have. Let me just say. There was one question from Prajakta Pradeshi on student exchange programs. Is there anything on student exchange programs that you are looking at? And any?
Yes, in the frame of the current Erasmus Plus 2014-2020, there is an action dedicated only to student mobility, which is the traditional Erasmus intra-European exchanges that have been now extended to non-European partners. So it's possible for European universities to apply on a bilateral basis for setting up a mobility scheme at all levels, from bachelor to postdoc to staff, with non-European partners. Every year there's a call, and it's the European partner that applies on behalf of the other non-European partners. So if Indian individuals in education or universities have this interest, they have to identify first the European counterpart and then ask the European counterpart to include them in this mobility scheme. And it's mobilities between 3 and 12 months for students, and for a minimum of 5 working days for staff, up to, I think, 2 months. So there is a wide range of opportunities, and it's very flexible. So you can basically, you have to justify these, and the selection criteria are the same that I showed. So you have to show that there's quality, that there is relevance, what kind of objective are you pursuing through this mobility. It's not mobility just for the sake of mobility. It should be linked to the development of the cooperation between the two universities with a specific general objective.
So I'd also add that, at IIT Madras, we do have programs with a variety of universities internationally. And I think over the years, this has really grown. I'm sure many other universities are also beginning to look at this possibility. It really helps to have an international, student body at your university. So any opportunity you can to explore that is a good way to go. And it is actually much easier to do, in my view, it's maybe easier to do an exchange program than to do a direct admission of international students, because everybody has a different system at their respective universities and countries. And there's some variation, enough variation that maybe doing a complete degree elsewhere, it's not impossible, but may have little greater challenges. But doing a semester exchange is usually much more effective and much easier to accomplish. So we do have a fair number of international students in the campus at IIT Madras who have all come through these exchange programs. And by the same token, a fair number of IIT Madras students are there in these international locations, usually for a semester. And just the way you do NPTEL courses for credit transfer, they do, both the students coming here as well as the students going there take courses for credit transfer. So that is very much possible. Okay, is there anything on faculty exchange? Is there something that is there? I think there is a question from Ranjana Sara. Is there anything on faculty exchange program?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. This international credit mobility action is for all levels of education, including teachers and staff.
Okay.
So there's a minimum of 5 days stay, up to 2 months, and it could be for teaching or for training or job shadowing, not for research, because there's another specific program covering all the research activities, but also in the capacity building projects, which have a wider scope. There is a lot of mobility included. and maybe Mette will talk about it and say what happened within MIELES. But it's not mobility for the sake of mobility, it's mobility aimed at carrying out the activities that will lead to the main objective of the project.
There is actually a question also on from Dr. Shilpa Babar from Delhi. So she says that they have different, I mean, they're not necessarily in engineering school. So maybe that's something that you may want to clarify. So they have law, they have IT, journalism, management, and so on. So do these opportunities cover that range of disciplines, or is it more focused on specific disciplines?
No, the good thing with Erasmus Plus is and will be that there are no fields that are or areas that are prioritized. So all the scientific fields have the same status and the same possibilities to get funding. So there are no specific calls or no specific actions that are addressed to any specific level of education or type of education. There is a division by actually type of education, in the sense higher education, vocational training, adult learning, and so on. But when it comes to higher education, all the fields and all the type of institutes that are recognized in the higher education system of their country are eligible. And I saw a question about getting specific information about the procedure. This was too short to go into details and the technicalities, but they get our email addresses so they can address.
Yes, absolutely. So you will have the email addresses of both of them, Mirko and Mette. And so you can ask specific questions, and maybe you should also look at the websites to figure out what kind of a program you're interested in, and then so that your question can be quite a bit more focused on what you would like to pursue. So maybe we will move on to our next presentation. We've had the Erasmus Plus is the more sort of the umbrella program under which the collaboration happens between EU and any other non-EU entity in the field of education. And one specific program was on e-learning and building capacity related to e-learning in India, which was the MIELES program. And it's been quite successfully run in the last few years. We're sort of coming to the end of one phase of it. And Mette will speak to you about what was done in this program and what was the sort of the intention and where we headed with it.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Mette Svensson from KTH, Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden. I will now give you a brief introduction and presentation on the MIELES project. So this is the multiplier workshop here at MIELES in Chennai, and what MIELES is a capacity building project that Mirko just presented. This project is designed to aid, assist, and help the partner universities in India and in Europe to enhance the design of their institutional strategies on e-learning, and to encourage them to work jointly in creating new e-learning schemes that tackle the priority themes in India and in Europe. Normally, the capacity building program on Erasmus Plus is designed that the capacity would go from Europe to India, but we have found out that this is not reality, but the capacity goes both ways in a mutual beneficial cooperation. MIELES stands for Modernizing and Enhancing Indian E-Learning and Educational Strategies, and here we also have the website of the project. A brief introduction to the history. The idea of this project rose in a discussion between the project coordinator, Dr. Nicola Petiti, from Global Observatory at the Universitat de Barcelona, and myself. We both found that the Global Observatory had the idea of a project on online learning and didn't really know in what geographical area to put this project. KTH, on the other hand, had a very strong cooperation with India. India is a prioritized region of KTH, and we could provide the right partners to the project. So we decided to conjoin the two ideas, and then we could also provide them with IIT Madras, who is the leading institute of the NPTEL platform. And the NPTEL platform has made this entire project possible, since all of the courses that Pratap will talk to you about later have been posted on the NPTEL platform. There is no equivalent of this in Europe, so we are very happy that the NPTEL has accepted us and added our online offer on their platform. So the MIELES partners consist of a consortium of fairly equivalent amount of European and Indian partners. And as I told you before, the University of Barcelona in Spain is the coordinator. And then you have a pretty wide range of other European university partners. Normally, there are not too many partners from the same country in one project, but you try to spread them across Europe, and also the same with Indian partners. You try to have a wider spread of partners throughout the country. You can see all of them here. There are also something called associated partners, which are partners that can support or just monitor the project and its outcome. For the MIELES project, there's a Spanish national accreditation and quality assurance agency, and NAC, which probably most of you know about already, which is the Indian equivalent, and also the European University Association, who has more of a general supporting role. The main objectives of the MIELES project is to support the Indian institutional management to assess their interests and needs with regards to e-learning. The project aims at building the capacity of Indian institutions to develop a clear, realistic, and tailored strategic approach towards e-learning, and also to enhance the capacity of the Indian institutions to implement their institutional e-learning strategies, both through staff training and collaborative pilot projects. As this project proceeded, we found out that this institutional e-learning strategies was not only an issue for the Indian partners, but very much also for the European partners. The project also aims at enabling transfer of knowledge within India regarding to e-learning strategy and capacity, but also between India and Europe. This Indian-European collaboration in e-learning is to be enhanced, and we're actually now preparing for a spin-off project to even scale this up further. Each capacity building project has a number of work packages, normally between 5 and 10, I would say. 3 of them are already done with, since the project started in 2016. So the work package 1, state of play and the needs assessment, was done with 2017 already. Second work packages is comprehensive e-learning institutional strategy, which was implemented in 2017 and 18. And then we had the e-learning pilot projects, which was actually the online courses posted on NPTEL already done. We have the 4th development work package left, which is to further implement and sustain e-learning strategies, which is now ongoing. And there are also 3 horizontal work packages, which is dissemination, which is what we're doing right now, quality tools and quality assurance of the project implementation, which is also throughout the entire project period, and of course the project management runs throughout the entire project period. I will now go into depth a little bit more into all of these 7 work packages to show you what the MIELES project is about and how a capacity building project can be built up. The actions within the first work package, you can see here, there are 5 sub actions. The first one is a mapping exercise, which is pretty common to have in a capacity building project, to see the trends on e-learning in India and Europe. Then we had a workshop on these trends to talk to each other about the findings. Then we made a SWOT analysis among the Indian institutions more in depth, and field visits to validate this SWOT analysis. And then we made a compendium on the SWOT reports. The mapping exercise is pretty interesting also for institutions who are not involved in this project, because it circulates around the trends and practices of the higher education system of Europe and India. This is very important to have, and also to establish a common terminology among the partners, to see what you actually mean by online learning, by e-learning, by MOOCs, and the other terminology that the different institutions might use. The workshop that we had is not very interesting for people who actually were not there. And then we made a SWOT analysis. Maybe I should just do this. And then the field visits were also basically most for the people involved. And then we had a compendium of the SWOT reports, which is pretty useful. It could work also as a guideline, because the first guideline that we made is on more general trends in Europe and India. And then there is also a SWOT report from the Indian institutions, but that could also function as a guideline for other Indian institutions looking to cooperate with Europe on online learning. The second work package started with a roundtable in Cyprus to discuss why institutional strategies are needed in order to advance e-learning. And we focused on also on two different aspects of online learning, which is blended learning and collaborative courses. Then we had a focus group focusing on how we could enable the students and staff to take advantage of the e-learning possibilities, because you could post as many online offers as you want, but you have to also educate your students and staff in order to know how to take advantage of this. See here. The first roundtable of the second work package lifted the importance of developing institutional strategies to a guide on e-learning. And then we made a checklist for developing and assessing the e-learning strategy that will help also Indian institutions as they draft their own strategies. This checklist could be very interesting for universities who are not involved in this project, and this is actually available for anyone who would want it. And could be a very good guide for how you should make your own e-learning strategy or enhance the one that you already have. And then we have the second focus group on blended learning. And this focused on the framework of the different educational realities. Because the Indian institutions are very diverse, and so are the European ones. And you will have to adapt to internal regulations, maybe even regional regulations, depending on whether you're a state-owned university or whether you're a private institution. And then we had a third focus group on collaborative online courses. And this discussed the different approaches to the development of collaborative online courses, and how this could be used to implement as a part of an e-learning institutional strategy. And then we had a focus group focusing on how to enable the students and staff to take advantage of the e-learning possibilities, both in the management of e-learning approaches and how to train your staff and students to utilize your new e-learning offer. The third work package was launching the pilot phase. This meant actually posting recording the online courses and then posting them on NPTEL. I have heard from my professors that this was actually a pretty time-consuming effort. So you need to have this in your mind if you're looking to post an online course. There is also the issue of grading the students later on. The first workshop was to launch the pilot phase, and we here discussed the technical and infrastructure needs. What are needed for the professors to actually be able to post their online offer online? This was followed by the purchase of equipment for the Indian partners. Even though the European partners might have a need for improved technique and infrastructure, we are not allowed to use the project money for this purpose. However, the Indian partners are. In most capacity building projects, if it's written in the application beforehand, it's possible to purchase equipment that the non-European partners would need to implement the project. And then the development of the collaborative online courses took a start. And as Pratap said in the beginning of this project, in the presentation, it's two online offer by KTH and one by TU Berlin has already been posted on NPTEL. And the fourth one will follow by the Sapienza Rome University. An outcome report of this pilot will be presented and including the lessons learned and future step to launch online courses by the professors who have posted their courses online. This outcome report will be also available to everyone outside of the project and could be of interest to any one of you listening right now. The fourth work package action of this work package is the staff training course for the Indian partner on how to utilize the e-learning tools, which I have mentioned before. And then we're looking at the quality assurance procedures. The European Quality Assurance Associated Partner, ENQA, is designing a quality assurance guideline for e-learning, which should also be available to everyone later on when it's finished. This will also look at the national regulations related to this, because of course there are national regulations for the Indian partners, and it also might vary regionally, and surely enough also for the European partners, and how to overcome these regulations. If there is an issue that occurs, there will be a guideline produced. And also there will be a report introducing the lessons learned during this pilot project. And as I said, we have learned so many things from this project that we're actually now developing a new project in order to overcome the issues that we have faced during this project. And here we also have a quote from the MIELES project manager, Dr. Nicola Patrici, who says that the MIELES project approach has impacted on the possibility to improve the India-EU cooperation through the implementation of joint modules using the NPTEL platform. And now we come to the fourth work package action, and the fourth work package is actually where we are today. We have already made a study visit for the senior management of the Indian institutions to Europe. This was held in TU Berlin in April of this year. A training exercise on QA for e-learning will come later on. And let me see here. This will happen on July 24th. And it will focus on the teaching and learning aspects of e-learning. And it will also incorporate the guidelines that are already developed by the state. The third training exercise will actually be twofold. One will be held here at IT Madras on the 12th of August, and will focus more on a general scope on issues such as examination, grading, and adaptability to the Bologna model. The Bologna model is something that all the institutions in Europe have to follow, and the grading system is the same for every European university, and experience sharing between the partners. This will also be the start of the production of the guidelines that will be posted later on when they're finished. Invited will be mainly IITM faculty, but also other institutions who are already using the NPTEL or looking to use the NPTEL. The second training will be conducted at Asian Institute of Design in Bangalore on August 14th. This training will focus more on the issues that we have faced during posting our courses online. And one of the major ones was the use of virtual labs. Now we will have a training on this and discuss the possibility to use virtual labs for the future. And this will target an audience of external actors who have not too much experience in this field. All of these trainings are organized in cooperation with KTH, TU Berlin, Asian Institute of Technology, and Amrita University. And then we will have training either in Kerala or Mysore. This date has not been set yet. It's related to the fourth online course that will be posted by Roma Sapienza University. And dissemination. The project website I've already shared with you and is now ongoing, and it probably should be updated after this session is over. Multiplier workshops, it's the one today here in Chennai, and the next one will be held in Bangalore on August 13th. And after that, it will be either Kerala or Mysore in August. At IITM, there will also be an internal institutional dissemination workshop on July 26th. You can ask to talk more in depth if you're interested in participating in this workshop. The final dissemination conference will be held in September of 2019. And this will focus on sharing the results of the Indian pilot project, promoting the types of cooperation that we have between India and Europe on e-learning. This dissemination conference, if I know Patap right, which I probably do, will also be streamed in somehow and put online for everyone who is not able to come to the dissemination conference. The venue for this dissemination conference has not yet been decided upon, so today we don't even know if it's going to be in India or in Europe. However, if you're not able to come, of course you're all invited to join. If you're not able to come, you can always follow it online at a later stage, or even live if that's the possibility. The quality assurance work package is, as I said, horizontal and runs throughout the project. We have a quality committee headed by the University of Peloponnese in Greece. And then you see the partners here, and their main task is to create the quality assurance plan. Other actions within the quality assurance work package are peer reviews, evaluation, service of the partnership, and then an external evaluation. External evaluation is normal to have in a capacity building project, and it's always persons coming in who are not involved in the project as itself. Here we have the last work package, which is project management. And we have a project management team of University of Barcelona, KTH, TU Berlin, Asian Institute of Design, IISc Bangalore, and Cardi in Cyprus. The management team tasks are regular meetings, follow-up, and communication with the rest of the partners. This was written in the proposal. Actually, the fact is that all of the team members of the project management are all of the project partners. We don't need a specific team for actually managing the project. Everyone does, and everyone fits in an equal amount of work. One outcome of this, there will be guidelines of project management dealing with a project between Europe and India on online offer. Internal memorandum of understandings are required between the project partners and the coordinator of any capacity building project that needs to be submitted to the European Commission. The interim and final reports are also required and should be submitted also to the European Commission. And all of the project partners need to help the project coordinator to produce both the interim and final reports, as they are built on the actions and findings of the project partners. And this is my last slide. And here you can see the logos of all of the project partners. And this actually was a poster for another previous dissemination event of the MIELES project. And thank you very much for listening. And now I will hand over to answering your questions, if there are some, Pratap.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we've had 2 presentations so far on both the Erasmus Plus project and the MIELES project. And I will speak briefly about the few courses that we had recently. I must also tell you before I do that, this has been a very significant collaboration between European Union universities and Indian universities. As you could see in the presentation, there were about 7 institutes from Europe which are participants in this project, and there were also 7 institutes from India with the differing levels of, stages of development and funding and so on between those institutes, which were still all equal participants in that project. And as Mete was pointing out, online learning has really been growing internationally, and in fact, or at least there's a lot of curiosity in it internationally. There's always been this expectation that a lot of it would benefit, circumstances like what you see in India, where there is so much demand and relatively limited access to such online facilities. So this kind of a project really tries to build that capacity, or at least we share a lot of ideas on the process. We may all have different levels of experience in it, but still there are a lot of interesting ideas on what can be done. And this project has enabled that sharing of ideas. And the seriousness of the project, the level of involvement of both participants from Europe as well as from India in this project can be gauged by the fact that we have had so many meetings both in India and Europe where participants have traveled and spent time, invested their time and effort to make specific contributions. In fact, even the 3 courses that I'm going to briefly mention to you, we had faculty from KTH Sweden come all the way to IIT Madras, spend time here, record in the studios here. For them, it was a new experience. They had not really recorded a course in that context. Professor Karl, who was in charge of one of those courses, he spent a lot of time and effort on it. It's a new experience the first time you try to record a course. And it brings with it a lot of uncertainties, maybe a lot of things that you doubt have come out well, which you wouldn't otherwise feel that way if it were a live class, because you have an audience in front of you and you have some feedback from that audience. So any faculty trying it out for the first time faces significant challenges. Not to mention the fact that they are trying to reach an audience that they have not normally addressed. So therefore, things like communication skills, that doubt that you might have whether you are saying it correctly, using the right kind of phrase to convey your information to the audience, all those things are there. Yet we had 3 courses that came from KTH Sweden, and two from KTH Sweden, one from TU Berlin, where they put in a lot of effort. And it was a very nice collaborative activity, because we had teaching assistants from India working with the professors in Berlin and Sweden to enable the course. And that was a nice mix of the course material and content, and some amount of the question answer activity happening from Europe, and a lot of teaching assistants from campus interacting with the faculty there, interacting with the students here. and bridging the gap. So that's what happened through this project. And really, without this project, maybe it would not have happened. It would, or at least it would have happened a little later. This was something that was always in the back of our minds in NPTEL, that at some point we can have more international faculty also participate in the project. But it is a project like this that enables something like that actually to happen. And it really came off very quickly. The moment this project started going, this seemed like an obvious and evident thing to do. And the faculty also were enthusiastic to participate in it. They also felt a great sense of satisfaction by having the opportunity to interact with so many students in India. So I'll show you some statistics here. This is just a short presentation, few slides, 2 slides on each of the courses. So I'll just start that and I'll just share some of those details with you right here. It is coming up in a moment. Okay, so you can see here there was a course on machine learning, which came from KTH Sweden. Professor Carl had offered the course, and nearly 40,000 students enrolled for it. So that's a very significant. I mean, he was overwhelmed by the response actually, and he's was very thrilled by it. And this is really true. Anywhere you offer a good MOOCs offering, even for faculty in IIT Madras who have been offering such courses in the last few years, it is always overwhelming to see the number of students who are enthusiastic about participating in these courses. So we had about 40,000 students participate in this machine learning course, and about 2,000 exam registrations. There were 2 more courses, one on electromagnetic compatibility by Professor Rajiv, about 2,000 odd students in that, and multimodal interaction, which has got to do with say human interaction with computers and things like that, which came from TU Berlin, and about 400 odd students had participated in it. So I'll briefly share some details about both these all these 3 courses to give you a sense of what we thought was happening in these courses. So maybe we'll put the next slide. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how clearly it's visible it is to you. So most of the students were from India, but I think I would focus on the pie chart at the bottom. You can see about 75% of the people who enrolled were all students. We had about 10% faculty enrolled in the machine learning course, and 11% of the people who took the course were employed. And of course, a wide distribution across states and age groups. So that was good to see. And this is for the 40,000 students that you see there. A bit of a variation in from the perspective of exam registration. If you see the pie chart on top left corner, actually about 60% were students who took that exam, and nearly a quarter of those who took the exam were faculty. So I think it was very useful in that sense for faculty across the country. So about 500 faculty have taken this exam and pretty much cleared it, and that's something really nice. I mean, so we now have partly faculty development activity going on with the assistance of faculty in Europe. And also, I think the large audience also suggests that a significant number of people were comfortable with even something mundane as being comfortable with the accent and so on. So all that was possible, and only when you do a trial you really get to know what is actually going to happen on the ground. And I also think this is a good thing to happen because now most of the let's say the job opportunities that are out there are all many of them have multinational linkages. So the ability of Indian students to understand people from other countries, both maybe from the perspective of accent, from the perspective of how they phrase sentences and how they exchange technical information, I think is extremely useful to have. And the earlier it happens, the better. Then it becomes it becomes second nature to you. It doesn't really matter whom you're speaking with. You tend to understand what is being conveyed. So therefore, I think it's very nice that we had large audience for this course. The electromagnetic compatibility course saw smaller numbers, but still, if you see here, faculty numbers were again high. We had about 20%, no, about 18, yeah, nearly 20% were faculty, and about 55% were students. This is for the enrollments. And if you look at the exam registration, even more than quarter, so we're almost approaching half, 40% of the people who wrote the exam were faculty. So again, I think maybe that conveys how difficult the subject matter is considered. That a lot more faculty felt the need that to take it up as something that they may find useful for themselves to convey their course material. So this was for electromagnetic compatibility. We would also pay attention to, I think, to things like age groups of the people taking it. So, for example, if you go back to machine learning course, a lot of people were the younger audience who took it, and maybe they needed to learn more before they could benefit from that course. And so that may also impact how many people actually take the exam. But that is absolutely fine. I think the online process permits you to explore new territory, not really being worried about what is the background level required, and then you gauge after you take the course what you could actually absorb from it, or what was a little maybe beyond your capacity. The last course was on multimodal interaction. This saw relatively lower numbers in terms of people taking it. Although I think it is something, maybe very interesting for people to look at, and possibly a rerun of the course in future may have a different audience in terms of numbers. And you can see again about 20% faculty, 70% students, and more or less 90% of the audience completing the course being students. I will point out, like I said right at the beginning, like I said at the beginning, that for the faculty also who offered the courses, this was a new experience, and so it takes some time for the course to really set. So for them also to create the content in the manner that they felt comfortable sharing in the form of a video, and the assignments that go with it, the exam questions that they set for it. It takes at least 1 or 2 runs before they can get the flow of it and do it in a manner that they feel comfortable. And so that's also a learning. So it's a learning process for everybody: the students, the faculty, and the teaching assistants who are involved in the process. So it is therefore very nice that we have already seen so much success with these 3 courses, and a lot of credit for that goes to the MIELES project, because that really enabled this direct interaction. Because all said and done, I may know a faculty somewhere in Europe, but everybody is busy with various things, and they may not have the time to think about it, to first of all consider it in reasonable detail, to say that, okay, this is something that I want to do. And this project actually enabled that kind of an interaction to happen, much more personal interaction, and therefore the interest to actually try it out once, and that really helped. So I think those are the things that we wanted to share. We have, of course, got some questions. We've already answered some of them. In principle, yes. I think a lot more people can apply. Many more institutes can apply for funding and participate in programs of this nature. I think the 2 people whom you should contact are right here. They are the right people to contact. I think they have shared their contact information with you, and that would be the best way for you to get started. Any other comments? Anything you want to share? Any questions that you want to pick up?
We answered more or less.
Yeah, I think most things have been answered here. So, essentially,
I think so.
Okay, so fine. So we have answered quite a few. We have had a fair bit of interaction going on the chat session, and I think that's good. That's the way it was intended. Even when the presentations were going on, we had a lot of interaction going on in the chat session. So at this point, we will conclude this session. We are very happy that you could join us and participate. And it really is nice to do it this way, because we'll have other dissemination events where we will also convey some of this information in person, especially during the SPOC workshop. But still, this is a nice way to do it, because at some level we are trying to do online education. So to do online dissemination is also a nice thing to do. And of course, modern facilities permit us to do this in a comfortable way. We are really delighted that you could join us, and I hope you found it informative. And please send us more questions even after the session. So thank you from my side.
Thank you from our side.